Once in a while I dream. Once in a while I think of you.
As well as a sewing machine and a sewing needle, you will need a light fabric. I used an old cotton bed sheet, a pair of scissors, thread that matches your fabric, shirring thread, pins, and a measuring tape. The first thing we're gonna do is to measure how elastic our fabric will be after shirring it. Cut a 20 cm long strip of fabric. The width is insignificant. Next, we're gonna set up our machine for a test round of shirring. Thread your bobbin with the shirring thread by hand. The reason this is done by hand is to prevent the thread from being stretched. Make sure you're not placing any tension on the thread when doing this. Place your spools as usual. Make sure to adjust the thread tension to be as loose as possible. The stitch length, however, should be as long as possible. Measure the new length of your fabric strip and divide 20 by this number. This will give you your star number. In my instance, my strip of fabric measured 12 centimeters after sewing. 20 divided by 12 is 1.666, meaning my star number is 1.666. Make sure to write down your own star number as you will need this later. The following step is to take some body measurements. Write down your chest circumference as measurement A. The length from your shoulder to your waist should be noted as B. The length from your waist to however long you want your skirt should be written down as C. The shoulder to shoulder measurement equals D. And lastly, the length from your shoulder to right under your arm should be noted as E. Now that we know all our measurements as well as our star number, we can proceed with constructing the dress pattern. Cut two rectangles that are as wide as measurement A multiplied by your star number plus 2 times the width of the seam allowance. In my example, the panel width is as wide as my measurement A times 1.666 plus 3 centimeters, as I wish for a seam allowance of 1.5 centimeters on each side. The rectangles should be as long as B plus C plus some extra centimeters for the hemming. I went for 7 centimeters. Alright, enough mathematics for now. We'll cut out 2 of these rectangles. Next, fold your rectangles in such a way that the folding line runs vertically. Proceed by dividing measurement D with 2 and multiply this number with your star number. Use this to measure out from the folding line and mark. Time for yet another marking. This time we will use measurement E to measure down from the upper cutting edges. Cut an arch that starts in point 2 and which straightens out towards point 1. Then use measurement B to measure down from the upper cutting edges. And once again, mark. The shirring starts at the top and ends at the marking you just placed. Here are some tips before sewing. First of all, don't forget to unfold your fabric. Remember to stretch your fabric while sewing. Avoid backstitching, knotting the ends is better. And last but not least, do not forget to check your bobbin frequently. If you run out in the middle of a row, the row should be restarted. Now you can sew evenly spaced rows of shirring up or rather down until the marking. the shirring is done, it's time to sew the two identical pattern pieces together. I used French seams to do so. Place your pieces together wrong sides facing each other and pin them together along the side seams. Sew half a centimeter from the edge. But don't forget to change back to normal bobbin first, as well as resetting the machine settings. Then cut away loose threads and excess seam allowance. Turn your dress around, letting the wrong sides face outward. Now sew new side seams 1 centimeter from the edge. Since I wanted the edges to match the fabric, I had to make my own bias tape. I did this by cutting strips of fabric running diagonally to the grain line. My pieces of bias tape were 2.5 centimeters wide. However, I would recommend increasing this number as it became somewhat tedious. The best way to join pieces of bias tape is by sewing them together diagonally. That way there will be less lumping. However, every time I do so, it ends up looking like this. Therefore, I just sew them together with a straight stitch. Next, I iron the seams open as well as turning in one of the edges. Then I placed the right side of the unturned edge along the wrong side of the fabric and sewed along the arm curve. Then I cut away the excess seam allowance, folded the bias tape around and top stitched it in place. For the top edge, I let about 25 centimeters of bias tape hang loose on the sides. This is so I can tie at the shoulders later on. But before finishing the top edge of the dress, I also ironed the other side of the bias tape inwards. This is to prevent any raw edges from peeking out on the ties. Other than that, I proceeded like I just did with the arm curves when finishing the top edge. The last thing to do is to hem the dress. Start by sewing zigzag or overlock on the lower edge. Then fold and iron 7 centimeters or however much hem allowance you accounted for of the fabric upwards towards the wrong side of the dress. Finish by sewing the hem in place. This could be done by hand or with a machine stitch. And voila, you've got yourself a brand new dress.
So sad how the seasons change. Sad how the feelings go away. We were in love, but now it's over. So once in a while I dream. Pardon my plea, but would you allow if once in a while I dream?